The Chainsaw Man Reze Arc film released to streaming sites last week, and I'm thrilled because I really wanted to talk a lot more about it. The anime's first season ended by teasing this part of the story in a scene where the as-yet unidentified Reze asked Denji, between the country mouse and the city mouse, which would you rather be? Her question references one of the more famous of Aesop's fables, and this choice of teaser puts extra emphasis on the relationship between the fable and the film. But even though there is a surface usage of the two mice to categorize several characters directly, the film will also feature a scene that collapses the fable's simple dichotomy, signaling the audience to avoid taking its application at face value. That then is the purpose of this video, to explore why the Reze Arc part of the story invokes the country mouse and city mouse reference, only to undermine the straightforward parallel. For not only does the film expand the allegory beyond the material comfort trade-off of the original, the comparison it makes between mice and devil hunters challenges some of the fable's underlying assumptions. Arguably, it questions or even mocks the concluding moral, though without necessarily providing a substitute of its own. So to try to determine why the series made these choices, we're going to start with the fable itself, how the Reze Arc film specifically references it, and then how the two align or diverge. The bulk of our exploration will then follow, attempting to understand the meaning behind Chainsaw Man setting itself up in contrast to an Aesop's fable. By the way, I'm Theta, and this video, like all my videos, is constrained entirely to the anime version of the story, as I do not read or reference manga or light novels. I am never a sourcey in these discussions. If you have comments to make, please likewise constrain yourself to the text of the anime adaptation. Thank you. Let us start with that head-to-head comparison. The Aesop fable is over 2,000 years old, and no doubt there have been over 2,000 variations during that time. But the oldest and most basic pattern involves two mice and two visits. A city mouse visits one that lives in the countryside, and at mealtime is served simple country fare. Unimpressed by the country mouse's offerings, the city mouse suggests an exchange visit to its city home, so that the country mouse can get a taste for finer dining. Country mouse agrees, and they travel to the city, where the available food is indeed far grander and varied. But their dinner is interrupted by the arrival of a cat, or people, or dogs, depending on the version, and the mice must flee for their lives and hide. The country mouse decides that they want no more of the city and its dangers, so they return home, preferring a life of simpler desires over a life lived in constant danger. Of course, this isn't just about food, but material comforts or luxuries in general. Lots of illustrated or animated renditions of the story will feature a city mouse with finer clothing, or a nicer home, and so on, often turning their nose up at the country mouse's more Spartan lifestyle. Like many such Aesops, the tale is meant as a lesson, and the moral of the story sides with the country mouse, who is content with a humbler but safer existence, while the city mouse is often portrayed as frivolous or even foolish. By contrast, the Reze Arc film initially presents the fable as a choice of preferences. Reze asks Denji, the country mouse or the city mouse, which would he rather be? Owing to his plot-relevant lack of education, Denji is unaware of the reference. For explanation, the scene shifts to the angel devil and Aki, where the former explains that the country mouse lives a safe life but doesn't have delicious food like the city mouse. The city mouse can find good food, but he's in danger of being killed by a cat or a human. Thus, the film at first simplifies the fable into something like a question of risk tolerance. City mouse embodies a high-risk, high-reward lifestyle, country mouse the low-risk, low-reward alternative. But the dialogue which follows expands the two categories to encompass more than just the luxury or comfort that the delicious food was an analogy for. The angel devil adds that he wanted to be the country mouse. His heart belongs in the countryside, but Makima caught him and brought him to the city. He doesn't want to follow a city mouse like Aki, who puts him in danger. Flipping back to the school setting then, Denji chooses the city mouse for his answer, but Reze protests. Being the country mouse is better, as a peaceful life is what's best. This sorts these four into two country mouse-city mouse pairs, but most of their motivations have nothing to do with living a more or less luxurious life. Aki is a city mouse, in that he embraces a risky, dangerous life. But he does so in the pursuit of revenge, not finery. The angel devil, meanwhile, doesn't want to pursue anything, would in fact rather die than have to work. And Reze's idea of being a country mouse is living a peaceful life. It's a rejection of danger and strife over any other consideration. For these three, then, it's more a matter of abstract ambitions or preferences rather than anything material. Aki has a lofty goal for which he'll risk much, while the angel devil and Reze have no grand purpose to strive toward, and so no reason to stick their necks out. At least, if they were able to have it their way. And then there is Denji, who chooses the city mouse because the city has more good food and looks fun. The man is almost literally a mouse with such simple needs. Reze playfully asks if he's saying he just wants to eat and have fun, and he assents. But this humble ambition is par for the course where Denji is concerned. And that's been true since the beginning of the story. So, to really explore the subject, we're going to expand beyond just the Reze arc. Back when Denji first died and then became the titular Chainsaw Man, there is this mind's eye conversation in which Pochita is able to speak, and so charges Denji with something like a life's mission. In exchange for his heart, he wants Denji to show him his dream, the things Pochita used to love hearing him talk about. Thus, Denji is reborn not just with chainsaws sprouting from his body, but with a guiding purpose, to be living the dream. A very modest one starting out, but as the story has gone along, he has found new things to add to it, renewed sources of character motivation. Granted, they are things like touching a girl's chest or getting a kiss, but it is a consistent rhythm in the story so far. In terms of the fable, then, this dream is the good food that he is willing to take risks for. And we might characterize all the other characters and their desires or goals as dreaming too. Aki dreams of revenge, Himino dreams of Aki, Makima dreams of destroying the gun devil, but probably much more than that, and so on. There's a thing they want, and that leads them to take risks or face danger. Dreaming drives key characters and therefore the plot. It's an important idea for the series. We could say then that chasing dreams is what makes one a city mouse. So, what instead makes one a country mouse? To this point, I've talked about how the fable characterizes the city life as risky or dangerous, but it could also be described as a place where people live in fear. Fear of the risk, fear of the danger. In fact, that is how several versions of the fable phrase the moral of their stories. Horace's 1st century BCE version in his Satires has the country mouse tell his counterpart, "The city life's no use to me, and so farewell. My woodland hole and simple vetch, safe from such scares, they'll do for me." Meanwhile, the country mouse in the influential 13th century collection by Odo of Cheriton declares, "I'd rather gnaw a bean than be gnawed by continual fear." And perhaps my favorite, from Jean de La Fontaine's version, translated into English verse, will have the country mouse conclude, "But at my leisure still I eat, there's naught to damp my cheer. Away with fests, however great, that may be spoiled by fear." A country mouse, then, is one who avoids fear. They do not stride toward, but flee from. And a key distinction is that it's not the actual danger or risk, but the fear which results from it. Consider the angel devil, who actually wants to die, yet complains about Aki putting him in danger. That's odd, right? Wouldn't he want the dangerous life if he has a death wish? Well, no. It's the stress and worry resulting from the danger that he cannot stomach. He does not want to live if it means living in fear. Well, fear is a rather important concept to this series, too, no? The devils are named for specific fears. They grow stronger depending on the prevalence of those fears. They seem to enjoy spreading fear. You get the idea. In fact, you might be tempted to describe the setting as a contest in which humanity is arrayed on one side with its fears on the other, a binary as simple as the fable. And since Aesop's tale puts fear on the city side of things, that is where devils go as well, leaving humans in the country, opposite devils and fears, but also opposite their dreams. And sure enough, that is the general thrust among the moral of the story in the variations of this fable. that it is better to have no dreams or wants if it would mean a life of fearfulness. The country mouse chooses to shirk from fear rather than face it, to abandon ambitions rather than weather their trials, and Aesop calls this wise. Already you can likely see that the fable is not quite a match for the series, but it may be worth first looking at how the film potentially plays the allegory straight. It simplifies the country or city mouse choice down to one of risk-reward trade-offs, and so characters face the question of what, if anything, is worth taking on more risk, is worth playing the city mouse role. Reze and the angel devil want to be country mice initially. There is no ambition or goal for which they'd be willing to do or risk more. They have no dream, and so they want their city visit to conclude. By the end, both have changed their minds. Angel Devil deciding to do the public safety work for Aki's sake, and Reze deciding to respond to Denji's offer to run away together. Each changes in order to stay with their city mouse counterpart, and that leads them to the same violent encounter where one dies and one survives. Reze's death is justified by the Aesop's warning of added risk, while the Angel Devil not dying demonstrates that it is only risk. So long as he can master his fear, he can handle city living. If the twin conversations in the middle and their collision at the end were the only references to the fable, then we might conclude that this was a simple, if bittersweet, way to apply this allegory to these two characters' arcs. But because it comes up again within that confrontational scene, and especially the way it comes up, the story is unmistakably prompting us to not take the fable's application at face value. Makima appears in a flurry of city mice, first saying that she also likes the country mouse, but then proceeds to share an anecdote about a friend's countryside field where she helps out in the fall. Preparing the fields for winter means evicting the mice so they don't ruin the crops, and so they dig up these country mice for the dogs to kill. And she ponders, rhetorically, why watching that process makes her feel so comforted. That this presages killing the self-proclaimed country mouse Reze is a connection that's hard to miss. And the same goes for the angel devil asking a nearby mouse if the city is a good place, perhaps in response to Reze's fate, or perhaps implying that he is considering the city mouse life. Now, Makima feeling comforted we will get to later. Her surface story, though, involves the low-risk, low-reward country mice who are not after the good food of the city, nevertheless dying in the pursuit of poor country fare. Even before considering the symbolic implications, the scene makes it plain that Chainsaw Man rejects the simple circumstances and the binary choice of the original fable. Interestingly, it's not the first time the series has done so, as there is one more place this tale turns up. For us to understand Aki's dream of revenge, we witness the last hours he spent with his family before the gun devil destroyed them and 1.2 million other lives besides. The beginning of that memory, though, is Aki interrupting his parents as they read his little brother a story about the country mouse and city mouse, a story about how it's better to live a modest life because it's safer and more peaceful. And they seem a modest family, not harming anyone, literally in the countryside, and their lives are randomly obliterated all the same. To invoke this fable and then have his family meet such an end, then, only makes sense if undermining it was the intent. There was no risk-reward miscalculation, no dream they were chasing, no fear they were fleeing, and no decision for which this was the consequence. Aki is orphaned and traumatized by sheer bad luck, and it's patently unfair. These are by no means the only two instances of mismatches between fable and series, but they're important due to their overt nature, in being rendered such that audiences cannot miss the way they clash. It lets us understand that other examples are not a result of poor writing, but deliberate intent. Chainsaw Man brings up this venerable morality tale, and then makes it explicit that it is not doing the same thing. It wants us to contrast the fable with the work in which it is referenced. So, the big question to answer in this video is, what does that contrast reveal? What is Chainsaw Man saying or emphasizing in the ways that it diverges from the country mouse and city mouse fable? Now, there are more answers to that than I can guess, but I am going to share the ones that I found particularly significant. One thing common to those two overt scenes, the deaths of Reze and of Aki's family, is that there is a sense of injustice, that the circumstances and results feel unfair. Aki's parents and brother were just random casualties, and Aki did nothing to deserve seeing them die or becoming an orphan. And Reze running away with Denji would have meant reclaiming the peaceful, simple life that had been stolen from her. These are the country mice in Makima's tale. They aren't pursuing the fancy food of the city, but they are killed all the same. That kind of complexity isn't really present in the original Fable. It presents a simple scenario in which a richer life which is riskier and a poor life which is safer both exist, and the mice just have a preference for one over the other. The country mouse gets a taste of the city mouse gets a taste of the country, and both decide to stay where they are. They have a choice in the matter. Because of that, the Fable has this underlying assumption of fairness. It's okay that the finer city food comes with commensurate higher risk because you could always choose the country life instead. So, if the city mouse gets caught by the cat, well, it's their own fault for gambling their life to eat a tastier meal. In that light, we can perhaps forgive the Fable for treating the city mouse as being a bit foolish. But these two death scenes just don't fit into that framework. Nothing about Aki's family in terms of their dreams or fears had any bearing on their fate. They are only dead because of living in that particular spot. Making it so obviously the countryside is a telling choice to emphasize the unfairness of it all. And the thing that Reze wants, the thing worth a city mouse's extra risk, is basically to live the country mouse life. But while the country mouse can achieve this just by being content with their humble but safe status quo, Reze's status quo is the life of a living weapon and conscripted child soldier. Like, it would be callous to compare Reze's decision to go back for Denji to a city mouse risking it all for a fancier morsel of cheese, as if she was choosing an unnecessary risk for something trivial when she had a safer, peaceful alternative. But owing to the Fable presupposing choice and this balanced trade-off, the comparison effectively puts the blame for Reze's death on her alone, as a fitting punishment for her foolishness. That doesn't really seem fair, and it's not an isolated example. There's a lot in the story that we might call unfair. Situations or consequences that seem particularly punishing, such as the angel devil posing no threat to humans in the countryside, and yet finding himself impressed into a life so miserable that he longs for death. The Power, too, lived the devil version of the country mouse life, subsisting on animals, content to wander, no interaction with humans at all. But she dared to make a companion of Nyanko, a tiny dream of being less alone, and that attachment creates the leverage against her that eventually sees her captured by Makima, completely upending her chosen peaceful existence. Himino's risk is also for the sake of companionship, staying in the more dangerous public safety because she can't convince Aki to go private with her. The situation that leads to her death, then, is a direct result of being in the Special Division unit that was targeted. No private devil hunters were killed by that group, after all. Imagine putting these two through that country mouse, city mouse lens of judgment and calling them foolish for taking on these extra risks, these little dreams. That seems unjust, no? If Power had just left Nyanko to her fate and gone looking for another cat, we wouldn't be sympathetic to that decision. And Himino sticking by her partner despite her misgivings, even with romantic intent, that's the kind of behavior we admire, not disparage. The story smacking them down so harshly for loyalty to their companions feels imbalanced. Aki obviously got the short end of the stick in life with what happened to his family, but the Styries did not stop piling on there. He loses the cooperation of the Fox Devil because she so loathed having samurai sword in her mouth. There was no way he could have known that the guy wasn't a normal human, or that she would react so. It doesn't even stop the guy, which leads to Aki trimming his lifespan down to 2 years by using the Cursed Devil against the attacker instead. And that is just extra unfair, because Samurai Sword gets revived immediately. Aki shaves years off his life for nothing. But hey, it's not just restricted to devil hunters and allies. Sawatari's complex plan to take down the Special Division and capture Chainsaw's heart rightly eliminated Makima as the key first step. But nothing says I don't play fair like taking a bullet to the head and then popping back up to avenge your own death. Now, it would be one thing if the story setting was just rife with character death and heartbreak and bad luck as a way to establish tension or tone. Every series must decide for itself if it's the kind where people can die or not, or if there's a kind of karmic balance or not, exactly how dark or light or heavy it wants to appear. All these unfair events could simply have been for flavor, threading a little bleakness through the tale, keeping us nervous about the fates of the cast, leaving us uncertain how any scenario might turn out. But when characters reference an external allegory like this, and applying it to themselves results in such a poor match, that pervasive unfairness no longer feels like flavor. It starts to feel like theme. The fair balance of the Fable throws into sharp relief what Chainsaw Man lacks. The series does not have this simple gradient of risk-reward trade-offs, or straightforward situations that characters can sort themselves into, or sometimes even a choice in the sorting. We grow to understand the story does not punish the wicked and reward the good. The characters will not achieve positive outcomes just because they are diligent, loyal, honorable, or sympathetic. It's not interested in being fair. Fair isn't realistic. Fair is also too simple, and simple is one thing that this series is not. Now, I've said that Chainsaw Man is deliberately contrasting itself with the mouse fable, but let's note that it's not just proclaiming the opposite message. It isn't asserting that dreams are worthwhile even if it means living in fear, and that a peaceful existence that wants for nothing more is a mistake. There are elements of those notions within the story, but there are many others as well. And it isn't necessarily refuting the link between dreaming and fearing. But whereas the fable looks at dreams and dismisses them if there is an accompanying fear, Chainsaw Man doesn't reduce the concepts down to a single judgment or single relationship. As an example, consider this question. Do you think Chainsaw Man treats dreams as a good thing to have? In most stories, that's always an unqualified yes. And the beginning of this one seems no different. We start with downtrodden Denji dreaming of a better life, and since what he wants is so modest, and the abuse he has suffered so extreme, we are already primed to expect a reversal of fortune, righting the miscarriage of justice that has been his life to this point. When it somehow gets worse first with his death, the idea of having a dream then becomes a promise between dear friends, a pact to infuse his reborn life with purpose. Good so far? How about Aki's dream? The destructiveness of revenge is a well-worn narrative path for good reason. Aki has bent most of his life around the objective of killing the gun devil, joining public safety as a minor and whittling his lifespan down in the process such that he will never reach 25, even if he quits now. And there's collateral damage. Himino staying on because he absolutely can't let go of the dream he was chasing, and she wanted to keep dreaming of him. A power befriends a cat and learns what it is not to be alone, to hear a voice that isn't screaming. Once separated, she dreams of being reunited, and in that pursuit will betray Denji, offering him as sacrifice to the Bat Devil. At least in Aki's case, he didn't cause harm to others on purpose for his dream. But then, there's Makima. What her endgame is, I have no idea, but man, is there any limit to the things she'll pull or the blood she will spill to get what she wants? In a world with giant grotesqueries and literal man-eating devils, she manages to seem like the most threatening thing around. Woe to any who get in the way of her dream, and also woe to those she thinks she can use to get closer to it. Okay, maybe Chainsaw Man thinks dreams are kind of a bad thing to have. Even Denji's meager desire leads to him becoming a child soldier under threat of death, but he's too happy having multiple jams for his bread to really notice. Is the story anti-dream after all, then? Well, no. I don't think it's saying that either. Or rather, it's not only saying that. In a conversation not long after his first outing with Denji, Aki will openly doubt his usefulness, explaining to Makima that everyone in public safety has a real goal or motivation, but Denji just wants to live the good life. Aki had told Denji that colleagues who got into devil hunting for the payday got themselves killed by devils. The survivors are the ones with real motivation, real dreams. Those without are a bad fit. And the series seems to support his argument if we examine different characters' reactions to dicey situations. Kobani wants to go to college but is unable to pursue that dream, and devil hunting doesn't get her any closer. Worse still, she's working for someone else's benefit. She, then, is the quickest one to fall apart in the confrontation with the Eternity Devil, the only one dreading the assault on the remaining Yakuza, and manages to even lose the ability to stand up when facing Reze. Ara doesn't share any strong dream he's pursuing, though he might at least have chosen his job, and he too will lose his nerve when they are trapped in the hotel, just not quite as badly as Kobani. Power may have really cared about her cat, but she doesn't seem to have chosen any strong new desire. In the first confrontation with Samurai Sword, then, she will freeze after seeing his strike, and ends up running away rather than trying to save Aki or Denji. By contrast, Aki with his strong dream is unruffled by these encounters, and Himino is largely unaffected as well. Denji's dreams may be quite humble, but they mean just as much to him, and he too is rarely paralyzed by uncertainty or fazed by danger. And then there's Makima, who is so in control of herself in every situation, I start to wonder if she even has the capacity to feel troubled. In these examples, then, we have a different relationship between dreams and fear. The characters with strong dreams and motivations are not as easily beset. There is something they want and are working towards, and fearfulness just becomes one of the obstacles they must overcome, because it can be overcome. And this is a nuance that is absent in the Fable. Chainsaw Man deliberately shows different fear responses to the same situation, such as to the first devil encounter in the hotel, and it reinforces the point when Himino is trying to assuage Kobani's terror later on. There is an important distinction between the risk of the situation and the amount of fear those in the situation feel. The danger may be inherent, but one's reaction is something of a choice. Think about the advantage Aki acquires against the ghost devil when he suppresses his fear and becomes invisible to it. Perhaps the city mice isn't foolish. Perhaps it's just not afraid. So, if it's not that simple when it comes to dreams, what about fear? Is it always something to be mastered, avoided, or fought? Well, in reality, our fear response stems from self-preservation. When we recoil for something because we're afraid, we are often distancing ourselves from danger at the same time. Power lost her nerve and ran away from the encounter with Samurai Sword, but realistically, she couldn't have won. She lives to fight another day and becomes an important training partner for Denji. In the film, the violence fiend takes his best shot at Reze and she is unfazed. So he beats such a hasty retreat that he leaves his partner behind, which is lucky for Aki, since that same violence fiend rescues him from death later on. On the flip side, Denji's childhood dulled his fear response a bit too much. He doesn't perceive the danger he is in by trusting his Yakuza employers, and will literally be stabbed in the back. It's only serendipity that his story didn't end right there. He'll even repeat this lack of caution when he allows Power to guide him far outside the city to retrieve her cat. There are upsides and downsides to having dreams. There are times to brave fear, there are times to flee from them. There is no obvious right way to be. Each character must make that calculation themselves and hope it's the right one, because the simple arithmetic of the Fable doesn't exist in the story world that they inhabit. And part of the reason it isn't that simple comes down to other people. As mentioned in the previous section, having and pursuing a dream can be something of an asset. It makes one stronger against the fears that devils feed upon. Each individual has a good reason to find something they want to be or achieve, but they are not pursuing these goals in a vacuum. Sometimes, dreams can be in competition with one another. In the hotel sequence, Aki refuses the Eternity Devil's contract offer to let them go if they hand over Denji. The devils want his heart for some reason, and Aki's dream of killing the gun devil requires devil hunters like Denji to achieve. Thus, if it comes down to it, he'll use the cursed devil's power. Well, Aki losing more of his life clashes with Himino's dream of being with him, which is what will lead her to try restraining Aki when Kobani makes the attempt on Denji. That leads to Aki putting his own life in immediate danger to take the stabbing meant for Denji. A dramatic moment, not just for the irony of Himeno's desire to prolong his life potentially backfiring, but because it's a point where their dreams clash, a showdown between the lengths each are willing to go for their heart's desire. Fear also gets some extra dimensions in that sequence. It's not just an unpleasant thing to be avoided or an emotion that makes devils stronger. It also leads people to extreme measures. Kobani is so terrified of their trapped situation that the moment she sees an escape route, she bolts for it, even if it means personally killing one of her comrades. That fear never lets go of her, leading to the situation where Aki takes the knife wound. Kobani and Himeno are both attempting to kill Denji, sure, but their motivations are different. Fears and dreams are both capable of creating a murderer when priorities are not aligned. Let's note, too, that fear causing harm to others, and not just those who are afraid, is a big departure from the fable. The country mouse fearing the city does not change anything for the city mouse, but the world of Chainsaw Man is constructed around the collateral danger caused by people's fears. Not one of the million-plus victims of the gun devil needed to fear guns themselves, but the society-wide collective terror created the situation that enabled their deaths all the same. The more fearful a populace, the more dangerous their existence becomes, a feedback loop that builds regardless of any individual's bravery or cowardice. None of them live on an island, but sometimes that's a good thing. As said, the story is complex. Interactions between characters who aren't on the same page does not always result in tragedy. While Reze and Denji get the lion's share of attention in the film, there's a side plot between Aki and the Angel Devil, newly minted partners who act anything but. The self-described country mouse Angel Devil resents the danger he'll be in due to Aki and his willingness to wade into risky situations. Yet, it is one such instance that changes things entirely. Aki will risk the life-draining touch of the Angel Devil's hand to prevent him being swept away and killed by the Typhoon Devil. Aki only has 2 years to live, but has no idea how quickly contact with his partner will drain that tiny pool away. Grabbing the Angel Devil's hand could have ended Aki's life then and there for all he knew, and his dream of revenge with it. An insane gamble, and seemingly unnecessary. After all, the Angel Devil told him he could let go, that he'd been ready to die for a long time. Even in this, they seem to be at crossed purposes. And yet, that may be why the sequence was transformative. After all, why has the Angel Devil been ready to die for a long time? Even with the little we know, I think we can hazard a guess. Makima informed Aki that the Angel Devil is someone who killed every single person in the village where he was born, which at first sounds like mass murder. But our initial introduction to him proclaimed that he had no enmity towards humans. Nevertheless, keep your distance, as he possesses a lifespan-draining touch. In that light, killing everyone in his birthplace sounds like an accident, a grand tragedy hanging over his past. And just after we are thus introduced, he and Aki have an exchange which now seems like a bit of foreshadowing. Aki will offer his handkerchief after being asked, and the Angel Devil says he's impressed he came so close. Aki seems unbothered, reasons that it's okay so long as material breaks their contact. No doubt Aki's life as a devil hunter has altered his sense of self-preservation, but there are two key things we learn in that exchange. The first is that ordinarily, everyone gives the Angel Devil a wide berth. I don't think it's a stretch to assume that he is usually isolated or alone. The second, then, is that Aki bucks that trend. Everyone else may treat the Angel Devil as though he were radioactive, but even from the beginning, Aki showed that he would not. This is not the only way that Aki stands apart. Himeno pointed out how unusual it was that he was still able to cry over the deaths of their fellow devil hunters. Everyone else just becomes inured to the constant loss. Aki, though, seems unwilling or unable to do so. In fact, even though Aki didn't think he could get along well with the devil, and once berated Denji for entertaining the idea of befriending them, the thought of the Angel Devil dying to Typhoon's power was upsetting enough to move him to desperate action. At a time when most devil hunters no longer mourn the deaths of their human comrades, Aki is distraught at the prospect of losing a devil, explaining that he can't stand watching someone die in front of him anymore. And while doing so, he wraps the angel devil in his arms, half to keep him from flying away, half to punctuate this emotional need to protect him. I can't imagine how long it had been since anyone so embraced the angel devil, if indeed anyone ever had. I think this causes the angel devil to reassess. He found his own life worthless and was ready to be rid of it, a lonely and cursed existence that few dared to approach. And here is Aki spending some of his precious few remaining months to save it. Not for the mission, not for his overall goal, but because he thought it a life worth saving. It's fair to say that this had a profound effect, and the evidence goes beyond just this supposedly lazy member of the Special Division showing his potential in the ambush at film's end. It's the details around that action which show his changed mindset. Makima had told him to bring Aki along, yet he did not, which is risking her ire, and he did so because he knew Aki would not want to see the girl die in front of him. He had another change of heart as well. Earlier in the film, it seemed like the new pair had irreconcilable differences over Angel Devil's refusal to grant mercy to a dying hunter. In fact, he said humans should suffer when they die, a sentiment that set rather poorly with Aki. Ironic, as it was just the reversal of an opinion Aki himself had voiced before. Yet, when killing Reze, the Angel Devil drives a spear right through her heart. Her life speeds away with little time for suffering. Now, try reconciling Aki's action and its impact on the Angel Devil with the scenario in the Fable. Aki takes a risk as a fear-mastering city mouse is wont to do, but it's for the benefit of someone else. It's not for good food, or a dream, or anything that benefits Aki, save that he spares himself the distress of witnessing another death. Indeed, the Fable has no allowance for the mice considering others in their decision-making. They choose independently, and their choices only affect themselves. That's a far cry from Chainsaw Man, where characters interacting with one another is almost unavoidable, sometimes to their benefit, sometimes to their woe, sometimes a confusing mix of both. The whole reason Aki has a new partner is due to losing Himino, and though remaining in public safety is why she was in that situation, her actual death is by choice. It's one that she takes to save another. Aki and his dream live on due to her sacrifice, but I imagine he has rather mixed feelings about it, especially when Himino's sister delivers the letters and he discovers he was the reason she didn't go private. Aki took a huge risk and saved the Angel Devil's life, perhaps even saved him from despair, but I must believe that the recent history with Himino is partially what motivated him to action. There's a chain of events that begins with Himino's offer to the Ghost Devil and ends with Reze's death. Two characters who never even meet each other, and every step along the way was an action taken on another's behalf. With such an example, the idea of a simple choice between a city mouse and country mouse feels not just incomplete, but downright naive. Situations which put a character in danger, or rescue them from danger, are not solely the outcome of that character's decisions, nor is it dependent on what inspires or terrifies them. Other characters have their own fears and dreams and the actions which stem from them, and there is no predicting the disruption once these intermix, whether they will intersect or interrupt. And there is hardly a more disruptive character in the story so far than Makima, so I have given her a section to herself. As mentioned earlier, at film's end, Makima lays out her anecdote about helping to prepare a friend's countryside field for winter and the ensuing slaughter of country mice, and then wonders why the sight makes her feel so comforted. It's the most direct attack on the Aesop's Fable, so it merits a close examination. In a literal sense, Makima is describing systematic wholesale slaughter of country mice, who are no less a pest to farmers than they are to city dwellers. The allegory would position the country mouse as living a peaceful, safe life, against which the choice of city living seems foolish. But actually, the threat to crops means that country mice are just as likely to be hunted as their city cousins. The real world undermines the fable's simple, binary choice of circumstances. Makima's tale says, there is no peaceful, safe life. There is no risk-free existence. To me, This part of the film emphasizes that Chainsaw Man has more in common with our realistic world than it does with fables or morality tales. These previous sections exploring the contrast between the series and the fable would look little different if we were contrasting the fable with real life, as it is also unfair. It's not as simple as a choice of this or that, and it has not lived in isolation, unaffected by the choices of others. In fact, all of those elements are present in the showdown between Makima and Reze, which I think we can agree is a far cry from a storybook ending. Beyond this explicit undermining of the country mouse and city mouse tale, we should also wonder why Makima is sharing her experience with Reze, and why she says the sight of it made her feel comforted. Now, to be sure, Makima is an inscrutable character by design. We have seen almost no unguarded moments, nor have we ever eavesdropped on her thoughts. A lot of the tension she adds to her scenes results from us not knowing what she's going to do, or even what she's capable of. We don't even know why she's aware of Denji's and Reze's conversation about the mice in the first place. So, it's hard to feel confident about any single interpretation, but there are probably multiple ones to make anyway. Now, one way of analyzing Makima's intent is to think of her audience, as she is relaying this to Reze after revealing she knows that Reze wanted to choose the country mouse life. That is not what Reze is actually doing, though. Going back for Denji and both possibly running away from their handlers, that's a city mouse kind of risk, and the life which follows may be filled with new fears. Reze is caught by being in the city, so to speak, and so perhaps Makima is reassuring her that the country mice get caught all the same. That even if she had played it safe and had not come back for Denji, she would have been ambushed somewhere else. Certainly the way Makima acts in Reze's last moments seems more like she's comforting her than punishing or gloating over her. Perhaps she was telling Reze that her choice was not between escaping or dying, but between dying for something she wanted or dying while running from it. Still, there is Makima's rhetorical question over why she feels so comforted by the image of country mice hunted down. Several possibilities occur. The first is about choice. Perhaps the absence or illusion of choice may be more accurate, especially if we accept Makima's antidote as evidence that the mice are not choosing between risky and safe, life and death, as they believe they are. The fable lays out a situation where the mice get to choose, and the universe treats their choices fairly. And so maybe Makima is comforted to be reminded that the real world does not work that way. The other two people in the scene, Reze and the Angel Devil, had their choices taken away, impressed into the service of people more powerful than themselves. We don't know how Makima got to her current place, whether it is something that she freely chose, but I highly doubt she can give up her dangerous life at this point. She must persist in this city mouse existence and its attendant risks. So maybe it's comforting that others out there doing and risking less are not guaranteed to be more safe and secure than she is. Even ambushing Reze may be something she feels she has no choice about, as Denji's continued cooperation is judged vital to the mission of bringing down the Gun Devil. For another take, perhaps instead Makima is comforted to be a participant in the country mouse slaughter, to be part of the risk they face despite trying to lay low. Makima doesn't cast herself as one of the mice, after all. She just says she likes the country mouse too. In a real sense, Makima has her own hunting dogs, literally refers to them that way earlier in the series, and she employs them in the pursuit of devil kind. Those are the mice that she hunts. Perhaps it comforts her to know that would-be country devils like Power or the Angel Devil, or like Reze hopes to be, are not able to go underground and avoid her. If Makima hopes for the eradication of all devils, and not just the ones actively invading human spaces, then seeing the country mice eradicated might feel reassuring indeed. Lastly, perhaps her reaction has something to do with the moral of the story, the one that praises the country mouse for rejecting an ambitious but fearful life in favor of a safer one. Makima lives an incredibly dangerous life. We've seen her assassinated once already, so perhaps she is comforted by a scene which suggests that there is no mythical risk-free life one can live just by being content with what one has or giving up on gaining more. And if one can't avoid risks entirely, well, life's path should be chosen by the seeking of rewards, rather than the avoidance of loss. I believe that Makima is guided by what she wants, rather than what she avoids, that she would supply her own different moral. And in fact, that may be what her other scenes in the film are all about. The ones she has with Denji and their day-long theater-hopping date. Now, this sequence does several things for the story, such as addressing Denji's worry about not having a heart, and reminding us of Makima's ongoing efforts to keep Denji on his unseen leash. But I think we can also read it as yet another take on the Aesop Fable's risk-reward question. Basically, Makima and Denji spend a full day attending a series of film screenings and are met with disappointment after disappointment. But while the risk here is minor, just a loss of money and time, the repeated failures to be stimulated or entertained start to suggest that the whole effort may be futile. In fact, right before their last stop, Makima will ask Denji if he wants to continue, after telling him a lot of people find the final selection hard to understand. He's uncertain. None of the movies have been good, or maybe he just doesn't get movies at all. He's afraid they may be wasting yet more time. By himself then, maybe he stops there. However, Makima will tell him she only finds one good movie for every 10 that she sees, but one of those movies changed her life. So, they catch that last flick, both get emotional in the viewing, and they exit the theater singing its praises. In effect, it makes the whole day's search worth the while. The dream of finding a good film is realized. It's Makima stopping to ask Denji if he wants to continue that I think is so noteworthy. After that string of failures, it'd be natural for Denji to consider quitting if given the choice. And so, Makima recontextualizes things for Denji, something she has done repeatedly when he has been disappointed, like after the fondling of Power's chest, or the unfortunate flavor of his first kiss. She makes it plain that being let down is actually the more expected outcome. But there are rewards out there that are life-changing, that are worth any number of failed attempts to find. That he so loved the final film drives the lesson home, though I imagine it's no accident which selection she saved for last. As relates to the Fable then, here we have the notion of a prize so great, the question of how much risk it involves is irrelevant. It's a dream worth any amount of effort or fear. Makima says she finds one good film in 10, but that's just an observed ratio. After a film changed her life, I imagine she'd accept finding only 1 in 100. This isn't a highly risky bet that likely ends in failure. It's a guarantee of overwhelming failure, but alongside it, the promise of a success that more than makes up for the cost incurred along the way. She has crafted her own moral of the story here, and has set Denji up to learn it. Arguably, he applies that lesson right away when he proposes at running away with Reze at film's end, fixing on romance as that dream worth enduring anything to pursue. Ironic if Makima's intent was to have him chase her dream, no matter the cost, but she will not end up hoisted by her own petard. Makima allows nothing to get between her and whatever dream she pursues. Never mind Reze attempting to abscond with Denji away from public safety's reach. Her mere existence as a rival for his interest is a threat to Makima's plans. Killing Reze and letting Denji believe that she stood him up is a betrayal that Makima wouldn't even blink at. After all, it's highly implied she knew about the ambush that killed most of Special Division and let it happen for her own ends. Makima won't just tolerate danger or fear in pursuit of what she wants. She'll put anyone else through them if it gets her closer. Certainly one thing Chainsaw Man accomplishes by contrasting itself with the Fable is underscoring how much Makima stands apart from the rest of the cast. She is not a mouse, a player in the game. If anything, she's a player of the game. Now, one might rightly ask, what good trying to choose between country or city with such a character in the mix? What good trying to heed the Fable's moral, to go live the simple, peaceful life as Reze wanted, if Makima is going to hunt her all the same? Well, to be sure, this isn't the only instance where Chainsaw Man clashes with the moral of the story. In fact, it's a series contrasting itself with an Aesop fable in particular that sparked my initial interest. Unlike artistic-minded stories, which prompt an audience to ask questions, the fables pose their own question and then supply a pat answer, the moral of the story. They aren't meant to entertain or challenge, but to instruct. This is part of why they are so simplified, so light on detail or nuance. They aim to be relatable to as wide an audience as possible. It's clearly a successful strategy, considering they've been passed down for thousands of years, but there's a certain presumptuousness to these fables, no? To craft a scenario meant to be universally applicable and then give a set answer as a takeaway. They purport to offer guidance for the lives of their audience, yet, as we've seen thus far, their simplified and idealized setups cannot survive contact with anything resembling reality. And even without that mismatch, what if the audience disagrees with its moral? Or even disagrees with the idea of there being a single answer, a single wisest course? That, I believe, is the position that Chainsaw Man is in. There is no moral to its story, but it communicates its rejection of the country mouse and city mouse conclusion in some rather subtle ways. In fact, the series undercuts it even before the Aesop tale is introduced, by applying its lesson where it doesn't quite fit. Way back in the premiere episode, just after Denji fused to Pochita, he will once again be facing the now zombified horde of Yakuza, his former employers/taskmasters, who reflect on what's happened to them. They had plenty already, why did they want even more? They took an unnecessary risk and effectively lost their lives, and truly, this seems like the kind of thing that the fable is warning against. But then, Denji turns the same thought on himself. Is he the same? Unsatisfied with the happiness he had with Pochita? In context, Denji may even be considering that it's his fault that Pochita was lost to him, that he, like the Yakuza, dared to dream of more, and so should accept the consequences. Even at the time I saw this, it seemed like an ill-informed conclusion. It was the Yakuza's own risky choice of dealing with the zombie devil that led directly to their downfall, while Denji and Pochita made no choice. They were only killed because they were betrayed. Furthermore, Denji's lifestyle was not one of having so much but somehow wanting more. Every part of his existence was lacking. Social, financial, medical, educational. He hoped to reach the starting line, not the finish line. And yet, to hold himself to the same standard as the Yakuza is just like applying the country mouse, city mouse moral with no thought of the nuance or circumstance. The fable would tell him to be content with his tin shed, no bed, slice of bread existence. It would call it wisdom. For another blatant mismatch, consider the situation of Kobeni. Her temperament is incredibly unsuited for the frightening and dangerous devil-hunting career, leaving her in a near-daily state of misery or panic. She lives her life in fear like the mouse of the city, would never choose it for herself, but for reasons I don't understand, her only other option is becoming a sex worker. She has no country mouse choice. Worse still, she's being forced to work not for her own livelihood, or to pursue a goal of her own choosing, but to make money for sending her brother to college. She wants to go to college, that's her dream, but instead suffers this terrifying, risky existence so someone else can have the things she wants. It's like if the country mouse forced one of their own to brave the cats and people of the city to collect its good food, and then required her to bring it back to them without eating any of her own. Kobeni is a city mouse eating a country fare, while her brother is a country mouse dining on the city's finest. I don't know what moral you apply to her story, but it's certainly not the one from this particular fable. Now, amusingly, the Reze Arc film has something of a moral of the story sequence in the form of its after-credits scene. Like many morals, it's a short, somewhat disconnected element that is tacked on at the very end. But as a moral, it is rather tongue-in-cheek. Denji has waited all day for Reze with not one, but an entire bouquet of flowers, a replacement for that metaphoric first daisy that has wilted in tandem with their vanishing chance at a relationship. And the cafe owner will speak as an older man to a younger, a dispensing of aged wisdom not unlike a fable's lesson. The girl was too cute. She was from a different world. He's sure that Denji will meet a girl who's perfect for him someday. His attempt to console and advise Denji isn't misguided in and of itself, but the surrounding story undermines it rather directly. For the first part, he is off the mark, implying that Reze was someone so out of his league she was from a different world, because we in the audience know she was rushing to see him. And when she makes that decision, she holds in her hand not a neutral friendship white daisy as when they first met, but one that is romance red. What keeps them apart has nothing to do with how the two of them feel, but they are kept apart all the same, and so the second part of this pseudo-moral comes into play. Someday he'll meet a girl who's perfect for him. Practically on cue, then, is the sudden reappearance of power. It's as if the story is asking whether she is the girl awaited. Was the old man's wisdom worth heeding? Should the flowers be for her instead? She even shows immediate interest in them. Is this, at last, the lesson of the film? A moral about the girl right under his nose? As if in answer to that notion, Denji does not just refuse to hand over the bouquet, he begins chowing down on the blossoms, to Power's considerable dismay. This kind of absurdity to shift the mood, it's a frequent tactic of Chainsaw Man that prevents its darker moments from lingering over long. But, in context, it also seems like a gentle mocking of the entire exchange of wisdom between Denji and the cafe owner. There is no moral to this story. And if I think about the scene a bit longer, I can't help remembering an earlier bit of flower eating when Denji received the white daisy as thanks for his charitable contribution. He made that donation as a way of validating to himself that he has a heart. That was the first crisis and resolution in the film, as though establishing that Denji's heart would be the subject under focus. Sure enough, what proceeds from there is a narrative arc about hunting Denji's heart, and a character arc about it being enticed, confused, and betrayed, and though it will nevertheless fill back up with hope, it ultimately ends up crushed. Chomping the bouquet is funny, but it's also a little bitter, a little tragic. And for me, this is the thing that the contrast with the Aesop's fable emphasizes the most, the tragedy of Reze's part of the story. To this point, we have treated Reze asking Denji which mouse he would rather be as an important sequence only because it introduces the fable into the film, and doing so implies we need to understand something about it to grasp the surrounding narrative. But let's now consider the in-scene significance. Why was the question important to Reze personally? Why does she ask it at all? Her mission is to find and acquaint herself with Denji, eventually stealing his chainsaw heart. And to that end, she has flirted her tail off from the moment she invited herself into the phone booth. She has succeeded in gaining his interest, and she used his comment about wishing he could have gone to school with her as a way to get him to follow her to a secluded location with no witnesses. But in the course of that adventure, things have become complicated. Their rapport in the classroom leads to the rather magically rendered skinny dipping session, and it's in the afterglow of that encounter that Reze asks which mouse he would choose to be, which effectively is asking him what kind of life he would like to live. An odd question from someone ostensibly planning to kill him, don't you think? It's not like the other flirting or fawning she'd used to stoke his interest. When he chooses the city mouse, she doesn't just agree with him to continue the impression of compatibility that she has been cultivating. She disagrees. She picks the country mouse for herself because a peaceful life is what's best. It's a real answer, for she has posed a real question. And it's not just the sincerity of her answer that makes this exchange so important. Consider how her reaction to him choosing the city mouse is portrayed. She starts a bit at his answer, and the close-up emphasizes the way that motion jingles the meaningful pin in her neck. Then our viewpoint moves outside to an angle where she turns away from us, followed by an emphasis on putting her back against the window. And throughout this, they're both obscured and only partially in frame, while we eavesdrop on a now muffled conversation from the outside. We are repeatedly denied a clear look at her expressions, and when we finally get one, the framing cuts off part of her face as she abruptly stills in thought. Compare this sequence to far more typically rendered scenes of their interactions, with balanced compositions and angles that allow us to observe their expressions and dialogue as they interact. This is far clearer communication of what they may be feeling and thinking. Instead, the direction of these visual and audio elements during the two answers give us deliberately incomplete information in an atypical, even off-putting style. It disorients, it obscures, and this is a reflection of the dissonance Reze is suddenly feeling. She's bothered by his answer. She's out of sorts. She'll build off his comment of just wanting good food and fun to propose they attend a festival together before excusing herself to the restroom, where we will witness some uncharacteristic body language. I think Reze is coming to a realization here that begins with inquiring about which mouse he would choose. She must wonder why she asked him that question, and why she reacted that way to his answer. Why does she care that it's a different one from her own? Something has changed in how she thinks of him, and this surprising behavior is the proof. I think she quickly excuses herself to try to sort out her confused thoughts. Certainly, these unguarded moments alone in front of the mirror could suggest a little soul-searching. Asking Denji which mouse he'd rather be means she is thinking about his future, at least subconsciously, and that means it's a future that continues, rather than being cut short by her. My interpretation, then, is that somewhere between Denji voicing his wish that they could have gone to school with her in the cafe, and their charade of playing student and teacher in the classroom, Reze's heart begins to open. The invitation to the pool and the stripping away of clothing is Reze trying to entice him, sure, but it's also making herself vulnerable, which is a key part of loving another person. In fact, it's a double vulnerability, as we later learn the water neutralizes her powers. And she knows this too, which is why we see her covering her neck when the two first meet, shielding herself from the rain so she can be ready to deal with this boy she has come to kill. Yet a week later, she makes no such effort. She's willing to drop her guard with him. It's here in the pool, then, that Reze lets Denji in to that open heart, though I'm sure it was not her intent to do so. This is the real meaning behind Denji's later line before the end of their fight, when he says she shouldn't have taught him how to swim. She doesn't lose because he learns how to kick his feet or hold his breath, but because of the emotions behind her offer to teach him anything at all. Denji himself picks up on this and counters her later claims of putting on an act with, "You said it was all a lie, but you did teach me how to swim." So Reze falls for Denji in the pool, and asking him about the country mouse or city mouse is the moment she begins to realize it. And facing how she feels creates a turning point in her story. For how should she proceed from here? Push away these feelings and carry out the mission? Or abandon it and flee, now that she might hesitate taking his life? Or what she does decide, to make a risky city mouse kind of choice and propose they run away together. Her decision feels consistent, for asking him which mouse in the first place meant she was thinking of the future. How does he picture his ideal life? How similar or different is it to her own vision? Is there a place or situation, country or city, where the two of them could live side by side? For me, the real heartbreak of this film is encapsulated by Reze asking him this question, between the subconscious hope that prompts her to do so and the tragic reality that it was hopeless from the outset. There is no choice between city or country for Reze and Denji. They are nomadic, homeless mice, unable to choose where or how they live, not in the past, not in the present, and comparing their stories to the Fable really emphasizes the injustice of their lives. Remember, the Fables use simple setups in an attempt to be universal, something that anyone in the audience can apply to their own situation. The Mouse Tale imagines an arrangement where some may choose a modest but peaceful existence, others may choose a richer one that is dangerous and fearful, but both options exist. And in truth, most societies will contain such a spectrum of opportunities open to most of its members. But not so for these two mice. Denji has lived with extreme danger since childhood through no fault or choice of his own. His father died in debt to Yakuza, who held the son responsible in his stead. The insane danger of first befriending and then hunting devils to work against that debt, it's not Denji taking on risky living for a finer life or a precious dream, but simply to stay alive at all. And his reward for all that danger is a lifestyle of utter poverty, squatting in a shed and trying to stretch a single bread slice for meals. He's even sold body parts to sustain his meager existence. Once he becomes fused to a devil, which is technically also not his choice, he still can't opt for a safer life, as his continued existence is only tolerated so long as he agrees to fight for humanity. His lifestyle has improved considerably from his point of view, but it's only by comparison. The film highlights this imbalanced perspective directly when he and Reze are in the classroom. Denji declares public safety is a good place because he gets to eat 3 meals a day and has a futon to sleep on. And Reze, seemingly bewildered, replies, "But that's the bare minimum for everyone in Japan. It's something normal for everyone." His answer there is akin to the expression 3 hots and a cot, which is used ironically to refer to the benefits of being in prison. He could achieve that 3-meal futon life with almost any other job, all of which would be freer and less dangerous than the one he has. When we eventually get the full picture of Reze's life, we realize it was little different from his. Orphaned, denied freedom or a normal childhood by the adults controlling her, fused with the devil and forced to live this high-risk life, and likewise through no choice or fault of her own. They each lived the lifestyle not of the country mouse, but something even poorer, while being exposed to danger not of the city mouse, but something even deadlier. Their histories are like a funhouse mirror version of Aesop's Fable, worse than the worst parts of both worlds without even the option to choose, no home to which they belong. And it's even more tragic than that when we consider what kind of choices they would have made. Reze's final line about not having attended school either is an absolute gut check. It reframes all of her schoolgirl antics, carrying the book bag, working on homework, demonstrating a classroom for Denji. This wasn't just a cover story, it was a private fantasy, an opportunity to pretend to be a high schooler, however brief. Small wonder she reacts to Denji saying he wishes he could have attended with her. In fact, when she proposes they run away, she adds on that they can go to school together there someday. At the time, it only seemed like she was trying to sweeten the deal for him, but in retrospect, it's something she must have wanted for herself. A simple, tiny dream, and yet still too much to ask. Reze falling for Denji while they pretend to be classmates seems all the more natural now, and all the more bitter. Her never attending school also means that she is even more similar to Denji than we'd realized. They're already both so singular as human-devil hybrids, a situation Makima says has little precedent even historically. Few others exist who could be considered peers. That they both had stolen childhoods and are of a similar age, that just piles on the ways they are suited for each other. It's hard to imagine either would ever find another companion who is so closely matched. Reze just wants a peaceful life and dreams of being a normal high school girl, and Denji's own wishes match hers in scale. I don't doubt that his simple desires, the easy way he takes delight in their school adventure, play into why she falls for him. They are kindred spirits, improbably met. It seems especially unfair that they are denied what they want with such humble dreams. Perhaps we're less sympathetic to the city mouse, who gets caught just to eat sweets instead of grain. And for lofty goals like Aki's revenge, we readily accept that there will be sacrifice. But Denji's dreams are so modest, the people around him can hardly take him seriously. Aki volunteers his own past loss and the motivation of the police protecting their families as worthwhile goals, in contrast to what Denji claims drives him. Upon reflection, Denji thinks his dream might have come true already, but maybe he should add something more, which is how he takes on the goal of touching boobs. Yet when he cites that little dream to power in answer to why he saved her, she is no less dismissive than Aki was. Heck, he even argues with the leech devil over looking down on his dream. But what they don't understand, Reze would. That the childhoods taken from them have changed the scope of their dreams. They are made happy by things everyone else takes for granted because they can't. The poor fare of the country mouse is, to them, a gourmet feast. When Reze rails against his situation, the danger he is put in as a 16-year-old working for public safety, or decries his lack of any schooling, she is also railing against her own lot. I wonder if she realized she was so deprived before meeting Denji and getting a third-person perspective on a similar situation. After all, everyone's childhood is normal to them at the time. And because of that, these two also have a dramatically different tolerance for risk and fear. Denji and Reze will both charge headlong into life-threatening situations without any of the worry or nerves that the other normal characters display. It's not just willing themselves to take the risk, for many of the devil hunters, or devils themselves, will do just the same. It's that they take the risk without being affected by it. All of the devils Denji kills eventually become afraid of him, a trend that continues in the film with Typhoon. And as cool of a customer as Aki can be, in his duel with Reze, we can hear plainly his stress, the fear that his foresight might not be enough. Meanwhile, Reze and Denji, facing setbacks in combat, become annoyed rather than fearful, and neither does either of them worry once they have a target on their back. As soon as Reze must pursue Denji into the city, there is no more attempt at stealth, and even as more public safety units hunt her, she maintains her unruffled pursuit. Likewise, Denji learned in the first season that there is a bounty on his head, and was nearly taken by the first attempts to claim it, but has never even hinted that he's worried, perhaps not even thought about being targeted. Arguably, it's why it was so easy for Reze to approach and seduce him. Someone even a little on guard would have found her attention suspicious. Now, I realize they are especially hard to kill, but this kind of numbness to their mortality, it's something deep in their psyche. It's not a result of gaining incredible power and toughness in adolescence. A childhood so scarred by loss that their lives feel cheap even to themselves. But that doesn't mean they are incapable of feeling fear, or worry, or anxiety, and those moments are rather telling in themselves. Denji thinks nothing of grabbing on to the Bat Devil in flight, throws himself at the bat in the city, and does the same when the Leech Devil appears, despite the loss of his hand. Yet, when it comes time to claim his reward for this adventure, he's breathing hard and sweating buckets. It's something he wanted and anticipated, and while there is the fear of the unknown, it's the fact that he cares about the experience that prompts this uncharacteristic display. When Makima recontextualizes things for him and ends by putting his hand on her, well, his ensuing reaction is the most distraught expression we have seen him display. Then there's Reze. After she sorts her feelings in the school restroom, she heads back to Denji, and her body language communicates none of the carefree confidence we had seen so far. Hunched forward, with one hand reaching across to grasp the opposing arm as though steadying herself. This is someone who is feeling quite uncertain. Critically, we will see her repeat this arm grasping at the festival just before she asks Denji to run away with her. She's nervous. The physical gripping is a way to steal her resolve, and that tells us she has stakes in the outcome. It matters to her. This is the girl who will waltz up to a whole building of devil hunters with a smile on her face, but trembles at sharing her feelings and hopes with the person she feels and hopes for. Her life may have no value to her, but this newfound dream does. And so, putting it into words and risking it being rejected or mocked or simply unfulfilled is, well, it's terrifying. And because of that, the Mouse Fable's moral would advise her to say nothing at all, to maintain her current situation and shun the fear that comes with reaching for more. It would assert the wise choice is to continue being a child soldier and living weapon, killing others when she clearly would prefer not to, considering she tries to let so many get away. She should be satisfied foregoing the normal life of a teenage girl, should learn to be content, manipulating and lying and betraying for the sake of someone else's goals. Apparently it's wiser to perpetuate an existence she does not want than dare hope for one she does. What a useless and tone-deaf moral lesson this would be for her. And so I guess a final tragedy in all this is that it was Reze herself who invoked the tale of the country mouse and the city mouse. She reached for something that was supposed to be universal, believing that such famous and ancient wisdom would be relevant for Denji and herself. But this fable only applies to the everyman, to the vast swaths of normal people with normal lives, and that's the one thing these two have never been allowed to be. Hey folks, so the video is over, but every so often I want to remind or inform you that I don't run mid-roll ads or do sponsored segments. They break up the flow of videos, and I don't want you to be so disrupted. I understand why some creators do so, as it's where they make most of the money to be had on the videos themselves. To somewhat make up for that lack, then, I hope to offer you something you might want. Many of the shirts, hats, stickers visible in these videos you can buy for yourselves. Whenever it's relevant, the video's description will contain links to such things, and I get a small affiliate commission on any resulting sales. The price isn't different whether you follow my links or browse on your own, so if something in any future video strikes your interest, click my link to get it for yourself and help the channel as a bonus. Don't feel obligated though. The most valuable gift is your time, and if you are listening to this, you have already given me a lot of it. Thank you.